Well, I have a really nice treat for you guys today. I have a good friend of mine, Kassidy Karlsson, who is going to be doing the podcast episode today. I thought it'd be just a little nice treat, especially lately where I've been feeling out of balance, for her to give you guys a nice episode about how to balance yourself and how to rebalance your chi and your energy and to kind of reshape your mind a little bit into a positive manner. She recorded this episode a while ago, actually. She was going to be a co-host of mine moving forward, but it didn't work out because I had some personal issues come up, and during that time she kind of found her own gig and her own groove, and she has her own podcast right now, and she's doing an amazing job. And she just kind of, when I'm listening to her, especially within this episode, she demands presence. Like, her voice is really beautiful. It's just something that you pay attention to and you want to listen more. You want to listen to it more. You want to hear her speak to you because you feel like what she's telling you is real. It's the truth. It's raw. It's honest. So she's an amazing friend, and we actually connected through her being, just really helpful to me when I was listening to some of her videos. And of course, she's been on the podcast before when I interviewed her. So it's a nice treat for her to do this episode for me. However, her price went up. So, if you guys liked this episode, then, please like, subscribe, share, and leave a review. It really helps because, the more money that the podcast makes, the more chance I have at affording her to come back on the show. So without further ado, I'm going to let her take it from here. Thank you for letting us vent to you.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back, or welcome to the podcast. If you are a returning listener, you may be very confused right now as to why you are hearing a more feminine voice coming through to you today. My name is Kassidy Karlsson, and Kendall, the main host, thought it would just be fun for me to do a solo episode to kind of introduce myself and surprise you guys. So a little bit about who I am. Again, my name is Kassidy Karlsson. I do mindset and fitness coaching and a lot of content creation myself. So I'm very passionate on TikTok, talk a lot about things on there, similar stuff to what's in this podcast, a lot of mind stuff and things about life and just anything I find interesting, inspiring, helpful, giving a lot of advice on there. And I also, make YouTube videos and, like I said, do fitness coaching as well. So that's just a little bit about me, but I'm very excited to be here. And I want to thank Kendall for, thinking of me and having me on here. She's an amazing friend. And I also want to thank every single listener right now, or anyone who has listened before to this podcast, because y'all are the ones making this possible. And I appreciate each and every one of you, even if I can't physically see your face right now. I'm sending love energetically to you, and I hope you can feel it. So today, I wanted to talk about balance in life because, I don't know, I've been going through a lot of change recently. And of course, that is the only constant in life. So we're always going through changes, but there's some times in life where I've realized there's more drastic changes and maybe more happening all at once. And so it's a lot more noticeable and maybe a lot more difficult than other times where we're just naturally going through small changes here and there. And I've noticed recently the importance of balance and kind of taking that middle path with everything. And so I wanted to start by reading this quote. It's a little paragraph from the book, The Untethered Soul by Michael A. Singer. Oh my God, the way I found this book. Actually, let me tell you that story. I didn't even think of bringing that up, but this is really interesting. So hopefully you guys think it is too. So I had heard of the book, The Untethered Soul, which I highly recommend. Like, it is my favorite book now. Yes, it tops The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, even though that is still one of my favorite books. And I preach about it. This book, like, it's short, it's sweet, and oh my God, epiphany after epiphany. It's crazy. But the way I got this book was I had heard about it before, Everyone said it was interesting, it was good, go get it. And I just didn't. It sounded good, but I was like, I have other books and other things were sparking my interest or whatever. And so I was in Lake Havasu, Arizona. That's where I'm from, California, but that's where me and my parents have a house there. And so we were on vacation one time and I went into a thrift store there and I was, just looking around for clothes. I didn't need anything like else. I was just looking for some fun new clothes. And I went over to the book section because I was like, oh, maybe there is a good book over here. I really like reading. Wasn't finding anything. It was all just like really old cookbooks. That was kind of it. And like fiction books, which I just don't read. I like a lot of personal development stuff. So long story short, anyway, I was over by the books, didn't find anything. And then all of a sudden, something inside me, it was definitely just my intuition, so strongly was like, go to the back of the store right now. And it was this weird feeling because in the back of the store, it was like pots and pans and like cups and mugs, that kind of stuff. And I didn't need any of that. So I was like, why would I feel this pull to the back of the store? And I couldn't explain it, but I was just like, well, I'm here. Like, why not, do that? So I went to the back of the store. And literally on the most random shelves there was like pots and pans. There was just this book, The Untethered Soul, like face up right there. And like I said, I had heard about it before, but kept kind of putting off buying it because I just had other books to read. And so it was very weird. And on the cover of it, it has a horse. And that was another sign. I can't remember exactly why, but the day before, something with the friend I was with at the time said something about a horse being a sign. Like, okay, if you see a horse or a stallion specifically, that's a sign for something. And so I saw the book, I saw the horse on the cover of the book, and I was like, this is wow. It was just super weird. And why would I have gone back there to get it? Now I understand exactly why. I'm a very spiritual person. If you don't, believe in those signs and synchronicities, that's okay. But they help me in life and I take everything as a message. And this was a very clear message to me. It was definitely my intuition guiding me. So it was just really cool. Literally almost every page in this book is highlighted because I found something so helpful in it. I promise this is not like an ad for the book. I just really like the book. And yeah, so I now see why that I was guided to the book at the exact right time because it's one of the most helpful things I've read. And now it just comes back to this moment. Maybe it can help one of you too at the perfect timing that I'm going over this and reading it. So this is what it says. Eventually you will see that in the way of the Tao, which is backstory here, just a little bit of, it's like the middle way, basically balance. You'll see in a second. Eventually you'll see that in the way of the Tao, you're not going to wake up, see what to do, and then go do it. In the Tao, you are blind and you have to learn how to be blind. You can never see where the Tao is going. You can only be there with it. A blind person walks down a city street with the use of a cane. Let's give that cane a name. It's the seeker of the extremes. It's the feeler of the edges. It's the toucher of the yin and the yang. People who walk with the use of that cane often tap from side to side. This is where it gets important, y'all. They're not trying to find where they should walk. They're trying to find where they shouldn't walk. They're finding the extremes. If you cannot see your way, all you can do is feel for the edges. But if you feel the edges and don't go there, you will stay in the way. That's how you live in the Tao. So the word Tao, I feel like to some people may have a certain connotation of maybe different spiritual beliefs or religions. That's not at all what this is talking about. Just want to preface that it's just about balancing things in life and how when we go to any extreme, nothing really good comes out of that in the long run. There's so many examples of this. It can be leading with your heart versus your head. There needs to be a balance of both. If we're just going from what we're feeling, then our emotions are fleeting and are really, they come and go at very extreme amounts. So if we act on just our emotions all the time and never think, then that's going to be very reactionary and going to cause problems. But then if we do the opposite and we never take action out of how we feel and we just think and what's the most logical thing to do right now, then we're going to miss out on the magic of life and what we're actually feeling called to do. We're not going to be happy. So it's that balance of feeling and thinking. And that's just one example of obviously how to kind of take the middle path. But I found just that paragraph so eye-opening, because we can all say that balance is important and intellectually understand that. But I don't know, the way that was worded just really hit home with me. So maybe it did to you. And I found it interesting that the author, Michael Singer, was saying, you know, it's not about knowing where to go, but where not to go. And I feel like just in our own intuition, we all feel deep down when something's not right, when we're not in balance. And it's feeling for those edges. I was going to say something else with that. Now it completely left my mind. But I think just a question to maybe ask yourself, and I'll need to ask this to myself too, is where in life is, you know, am I in those extremes? What parts of life don't feel aligned? And I think even if we don't want to admit it to ourselves, there's a feeling that happens in our body, like our physiology says when something's not aligned. We can tell if we're in a job that isn't really aligned, even if logically it makes sense. We are really good at what we do. We're making a lot of money. We maybe have really good friends at the job. Everything seems good logically, but maybe in this intuitive sense, you know that there's an extreme there and you're not really in balance with what you're meant to be doing. Again, just very specific example. But that kind of brings up the whole balance of work and life as well, which I wanted to bring up because, yes, I do believe there is a work-life balance, but I've always found that kind of a weird thing to say because work is a part of life and you can bring your life into your work, which makes it less work feeling, like the connotation of work. And so I don't know, I haven't really thought too much about that subject, but I've just always found it really interesting how work and life in that sense seems so disconnected and so separate when they're all the same. You can't disconnect, you know, from life when you're at work. And when you try to, because I know I've done that before. I've worked one of my first jobs. Well, actually, I've worked at a lot of different food places and like retail and stuff. And I remember in those jobs, I would really try to disconnect from my life when I was at work, which in a way, you know, is beneficial maybe for the company and customers, because like I can pretend things aren't really like going wrong in my life and show up and be happy and smiling and whatever, but that takes a toll on you. And so when we're trying to push things down and like so intentionally like that too, and to realize that work and life are not completely separate. They have different places, but life is life. Like work is a part of that. And so I think a better way to think of this would be to balance the work that is not aligned, or not even not aligned, but not as free flowing and takes more thinking versus work that's more creative and could be fun if you were in that kind of flow state. Yeah. So maybe thinking of that. And I think it's just good to reflect on where in life do we not feel a sense of balance. And this can be areas of life. So in our work or financial life, in our romantic relationships, in our personal development, in our health and fitness, you know, what areas of life do you feel a little out of balance, either in kind of a more, not more positive way, but more like you're doing too much in the area or you're not doing enough. Because I think it's when we do, you know, think about that and really work on balancing out parts of life intentionally, then we get into this flow state and then everything's balanced. It's all a lot easier. We feel good and at our best and most efficient and we're the most productive. Because that's the thing too, is I feel like in this society, we, are pushed down with just hustle culture. Like, you need to do this and keep going and never take breaks, don't sleep, no days off, all that. And the thing to realize though is we're most productive when we do rest, when we do have fun, when we take a break from work, from the daily grind. If we're just going all the time, maybe intellectually we might think, oh, this means I'm going to get more done because I'm spending more time doing whatever it is, maybe working. But are you really getting as much done? And are you as happy at the process? I'd say no to both of those. And so that's just something, I guess, to keep in mind.
If you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, it's the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need in one place. Let me explain. Anchor has the tools to allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. When hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. It's everything you need in one place. And best of all, Anchor is totally free. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
A really important thing I've noticed lately is when I notice things are out of balance, to have sort of consistent practices or consistent kind of reflection periods where I, start to balance out everything in my life or just certain parts of my life. And I feel like sometimes we wait till we're so out of balance that we can't ignore it anymore in order to make a change and to do something different. But I think it's super important to have these consistent practices that help you feel more in balance so that you never get to that state of completely just out of alignment. So that's going to be a personal thing, I think, for everyone. For me, meditation, oh my gosh. I know I talked about that. I can't remember exactly what I said, but I was a guest on this podcast a while back. It was an episode about mindfulness, and that's so weird. I literally don't even remember what I talked about in that episode now that I'm thinking of it. I'll have to go listen to it again. Y'all should go listen to it. But I know I mentioned how meditation has helped me like crazy in life. And I feel like for me, that's my way of coming back to a strong foundation of balance and the way things should be, because it gets me out of my head, gets me out of the thinking and the reacting to emotions. It is just observing exactly what's going on and accepting that at the moment. And that's what brings me into a state of balance. Now, of course, that helps when I completely out of balance, like world's chaotic, hectic, whatever. Of course, that helps me then, but it's even more so when I just consistently am doing the meditation practice, even on the days where I feel amazing and feel good. And then it keeps me in that kind of alignment as time goes on. So yeah, are there any practices for you that you've noticed help keep you in balance and in a state of just more flow, more ease? So maybe that's going out in nature, physical movement, maybe eating certain foods or avoiding other foods, or even, consuming on a mental level on social media or on TV. Are there different shows or movies that just make you not feel that so good, or other ones that you do feel good watching? And yeah, I think a big just part of life is reflection and really being honest with yourself as to what actually makes you feel good and not. And again, just finding the balance in that. Like, you don't need to completely cut out every single thing that's maybe more negative, if you want to call it that. Like, for example, maybe watching horror movies or something, which those are, even though they're exciting and exhilarating, they're more negative. They have a negative energy that kind of emanates from them. That's kind of my guilty pleasure, not gonna lie. And that's something that I I used to think when I first started getting into personal development and spirituality and realizing that everything we consume goes straight into our subconscious mind, I was like, oh my God, I can never watch a horror movie again, blah, blah, blah. And I was like freaked out about that because that's what I do. I love horror movies. I think they're so interesting. And that's one of the things I do with like my dad, for example. That's one way we bond is watching horror movies together. And so I thought, oh, I have to like push this out of my life completely. And then, as time went on and I realized the importance of balance, I realized that no, I don't have to do that. I can acknowledge that this is a more negative thing that I don't want to do on a daily basis. And I can have that sort of self-control and awareness to not, be engulfed in this in times where it's maybe not so good for me, but to let myself enjoy that every once in a while, And I realized that makes me feel at my best when I'm not so strict with myself, but I also have some boundaries within myself for my own growth, So yeah, I'll ask you a lot of questions during this, but what are your boundaries for your own happiness, your own growth? Some things that are coming to mind just by saying that is, certain content we consume, different foods that you eat, or maybe like people that you hang out with, situations that you're in. Like one thing that comes to my mind, because I'm a college student right now, I'm a fourth year, living in a house with other college students. And so there's a lot of partying going on. And, no shame on anyone that loves to party. I do too. But at the same time, that's not, for me, the energy I want to be in every single weekend for multiple days in a row. That just drains me, partially because I'm an introvert. So I get very exhausted being around other people, even if I'm enjoying myself there. So that's one thing. And two, just, maybe eating really unhealthy, drinking, that kind of stuff. I've noticed with just my own body, it's very sensitive. So I don't feel at my best when I'm doing that on a very consistent basis. So are there things like that where you can just balance? It's not like you're cutting stuff out completely, but you can just make a little bit of healthier choices and kind of set little boundaries or little limits for yourself. I found that to be really helpful in a way. Let's see. Sorry, there might be some background noise for a second. Maybe I can edit that out. Okay, one concept I wanted to go over, and we could probably just end with this unless some random bursts of epiphanies come up, which who knows, they might, is fear and having courage. Now, I've been in the mindset before, and honestly still do sometimes, I'll be honest, is when I'm scared of something, but I know that that's a direction I kind of want to take or have to take. For example, like if I want to do more speaking things. I feel this kind of push inside of me to speak more, to maybe give TED Talks one day or something like that. But I get really nervous talking in front of people. Like a lot of people can probably relate to public speaking. That's a common anxiety producing sort of event. And I used to think that was something I just had to go full force into if I wanted to do that. But what I realized is you can break down your fears and take it one step at a time. You don't need to go all at once. And this comes back to balance. You can, for me, I said yes to an opportunity to speak in front of about 20 people the other day because I'm wow, for me, that was a sign the universe, life giving me an opportunity to start practicing on overcoming a fear of public speaking and working towards those bigger goals. Because the thing is, that big thing that you want to do that you're really scared of, but you're trying to take steps towards, that seems so far away from where you are now. And that's why it's so scary. But when you take those little steps, you will naturally, even if you can't intellectualize this right now, you will naturally feel more comfortable with it as time goes on. It will just become easier. And then that next step will become easier. You'll have to have a little courage to get through that and then move on to the next one. And, at some point the next step is going to be that big goal that you had. That's now just going to be one more step. And yeah, So with fears, you don't have to go full force into them. Now, I'm a total advocate for leaning into your fears because I believe that they're there for our growth. They're there to, help us know more about ourselves. And I think it's important to go towards that because sometimes when we're fearing something, it's just that we're so excited and we know something's meant for us, but it's big. So it's scary and it's new and it's something we've never done before. So we can't predict it. We can't control it. So it's scary. I've realized the truth in just taking those small steps, not having to do it all at once, finding the balance between leaning into fears and also, going out of your comfort zone and also staying comfortable and feeling safe. I think for our growth, we need to step out of our comfort zone. We need to do things differently. We need change because change is the only thing that is consistent with life. And so if we're not changing, then we're going against life itself. Damn, that just resonated with me, what I just said. Can I drop my own mic? All right. But seriously, but I think that when we're so uncomfortable and we keep being courageous and going so far out of our comfort zone, that can be too much. That takes a toll on our physical health even because our nervous system is going to be like, what are you doing? You're scared all the time. You're pushing past these limits all the time. So, it is still important to take the slow steps and still feel that sense of safety, that strong foundation, but also pushing past those limits. So, I think that's all I'm kind of wanting to talk about today. Yeah, I don't know. I guess the last little thing would be the balance between pushing yourself and giving yourself slack. I think that's important. I think always, no matter what, we should always forgive ourselves because we can't change the past. We can't change what's happened. And the only way we're going to move forward in a positive direction is if we forgive ourselves and come from that loving energy, because that's what's going to make us actually want to do better in the future and learn from our mistakes. But I guess that's all for today. I hope everyone listening benefited in some way from this message and from even the quote I read from the book, and maybe some of this resonated with you. I know this specific concept has been coming up so much in my life. It's so weird. At certain times in my life, there's specific things that keep coming up. I keep hearing people talk about balance in life. I will come across videos that talk about that same concept. And I see even signs when I'm driving down the street about balance. And it's not exactly these concepts, but it's that those words keep coming up and tapping into flow state, ease, not going towards extremes, all of that just prominent in my life right now. And so maybe that's just me, but I think these messages can be helpful to anyone, at least at some point. We all know what it's like to feel out of balance, and we all know how amazing it is to be in balance and to figure out ways to really keep that going as much as possible. So we're not perfect. This takes practice. This takes work. And even though I'm talking about all this and believing wholeheartedly what I'm saying, it's still hard. I'm still going to get out of balance and forget these things at the moment, but it's just about coming back to that strong foundation and that inner knowing that we all have. Even if you're not, maybe a spiritual person or think of things in this way, I believe we all know deep down sort of what's best for us. And it's about just listening to that and going towards that in whatever way feels right to us. So again, my name is Kassidy, and I'm so thankful to be on this podcast now. And you guys can find me on TikTok and on Instagram at Mindset with Cass. Cass is spelled with a K. And then on YouTube, Kassidy Karlsson, both with a K and both with two S's. I gotta always say that. But I appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in today and for taking time for even yourself just to bring up the ideas that are in the episodes in this podcast, just getting more in tune with maybe your own mental health. And I encourage you all after this to ask yourself how you're feeling and really sit with yourself. It doesn't need to be a hour-long meditation, but just to sit for a moment and tune in. Like, how have you been? How are you feeling? And maybe where in life can there be a little bit more balance for you? Where are you going towards the extremes in some ways that aren't feeling the best and most aligned with, what would feel better at this moment? So just asking yourself questions, and thank you so much for listening. And I hope you have the most amazing rest of your day.
Well, I want to thank Kassidy again for being on the podcast. Really, it's amazing having her on the show. She gives such a strong presence about herself, and you really just want to listen and reflect and take in everything that she says when it comes to balance and finding yourself. I thought that, her words are really inspiring to me, and I hope I can have her on again. Make sure you follow her handle at Mindset with Cass, which is with a Kass. And make sure you like, subscribe, and, share this podcast with everyone you know, pretty much. Leave a review too. It really helps the podcast, really helps us grow and be able to afford more guests that can come on the show, be able to have better, quality of episodes, and just bring a lot of content to you guys. I have a lot of things in the works that I'm actively working on with the podcast, and I hope to have them all to you guys as soon as possible. So yeah, just thank you so much for listening. My name is Kendall Doniker. This is the Single Father Podcast. Until next time, bye-bye.